The future is electric. That's what nearly every manufacturer is moving toward as we go into the 2020 decades. However, no other manufacturer is embracing it quite as hard as the Volkswagen Group. And today, I'm here at their headquarters in Herndon, Virginia to drive the newest member of their electrified family from Audi. This right here is the 2022 e-Tron GT, a new dedicated all-electric sports sedan that was built from the ground up to be an EV. Audi says it'll go up to 238 miles on a full charge. It'll recharge on a DC fast charger from 5 to 80% in as little as 22 minutes. And this RS version right here will do 0 to 60 in around 3 seconds. So if you guys have been in the market for a new all-electric sports sedan that looks like a rolling concept car, how does this new e-Tron GT stack up? Stay tuned to find out. So if you're wondering what's powering the e-Tron GT, I want to first start with what's going on underneath the hood. Now, first of all, to open up the hood, Audi actually puts a little electronic release here on the door. It's a nicely hidden button that's well finished. Push that button and of course it'll open up the hood, which, remember, this is an all-electric car, so it technically has a frunk because there is no internal combustion engine. This shares a platform with the Porsche Taycan. It was designed and built from the ground up to be an all-electric car. Now you can see it's a very nicely finished area. Audi says you get around 2.5 cubic feet of space. Your level 1 and level 2 chargers included. This is a great place to store it. It's also a nicely carpeted area. And really, this area right here is where a lot of enthusiasts, of course, are going to be confused because remember, we're heading toward an all-electric future. All e-Tron GTs come standard with 2 electric motors, one at the front, one at the rear. This RS version that I'm showing you makes a total of 590 horsepower. That's right, nearly 600 horsepower in this vehicle. And that's before you factor in the 30 seconds of overboost that Audi gives you in sport mode. When it's in overboost, it'll actually push out 637 horsepower and around 562 pound-feet of torque. It can increase to nearly 580 when it's in overboost. Because it has dual motors, remember we have all-wheel drive, and this vehicle comes standard with the larger battery pack that's optional on the Porsche Taycan. It's the Plus battery pack at 93 kilowatt hours. Audi says their estimates are showing up to 232 miles of range on the RS. This one right here is the regular e-Tron that offers 238 miles. We're gonna have a final EPA certification soon, but that range figure, of course, doesn't make it quite as good as something like a Tesla Model S. It pretty much matches what you get in the Porsche Taycan, but remember, in the real world, which I'll be able to test this vehicle soon, these are European spec pre-production models. You should be getting much more than the 238. Audi and other manufacturers tend to be a lot more conservative. Now, of course, when it comes to charging, just like the Taycan, the e-Tron GT offers 2 charge ports, one on the passenger side and one on the driver's side. And I like the fact that they do offer 2 different charging ports because with the 2 charge ports, this vehicle runs on the 800 volt architecture, which means you can essentially charge this vehicle at a 270 kilowatt charger, a fast charger, from 5 to 80% in as little as 22.5 minutes. That's insane. That's quicker than most of the competitors. Tesla offers something that's nearly that fast if you guys can find their V3 superchargers, but this is pretty much the game-changing EV because in as little as 22.5 minutes, you can essentially take road trips in this vehicle, and it's not going to take that much longer than most of the gas cars, considering most people when they stop at road trips usually tend to go inside, get something to eat, or use the restroom and so forth. Now, if you guys plan to just charge this vehicle at home on a level 2, Audi says it'll take right around 9 hours to fully charge. So right overnight, remember, you've got a 93 kilowatt hour battery pack, 0 to 60 in 3 seconds for this one and 3.9 seconds for that one. So these are incredibly quick cars. Now, enough about the powertrain because we're going to get out on the road and we're going to drive these vehicles. I want to talk about the styling because I mentioned earlier, these vehicles look like rolling concept cars. Now, this one here is the RS model, but I want to focus more on the regular GT version because in this color, it has essentially the same wheels and same upgraded brakes as the RS, but it looks like a concept car to me because of how low and wide it is. Audi says at nearly 77.5 inches wide, this is one of the widest vehicles and lowest vehicles they made this short of an R8. Only the R8 is actually lower and slightly wider. And at 195 inches long, this is a mid-size sports sedan that is probably the right proportions for a lot of people in America. Its wheelbase is sharing that of the Taycan at 114 inches long. And I really like what Audi does with the wheels. They offer several different wheel options, and adjustable air suspension is going to be standard. This one here has the upgraded brakes, like I mentioned. And these are a 21-inch wheel, and you can also option up to get to a 22-inch wheel if you guys prefer. I really like the way this looks. It really fills out the bulging fenders of this vehicle well. It accentuates just how wide and low this vehicle is, which I think is going to really get a lot of attention when you start seeing these hit the road later this summer. Now let's talk about the front fascia of the e-Tron GT, because this looks just like the concept car that they showed in the Avengers movie a couple years ago. Of course, we don't have an actual grille opening. What we do have is the Audi single frame grille, which is kind of closed off because you don't need to cool those internal combustion engines and whatnot. You have these full LED matrix design LED headlights, which offer a laser light headlight technology if you guys go for the option. The fully laser headlights technically aren't available in the US on the low beams. It's only on the high beams, and you can see some functional vents here. The regular GT version here has a painted single frame grille. The RS version has kind of a blacked out grille, and it also has some carbon fiber accents to really give this vehicle a really aggressive look. So as sexy looking as the e-Tron GT is from the front, this is really the angle that most people are going to be looking at because this thing is so bloody fast. The rear design, again, accentuates just how low and wide it is. We have these full-length LED taillights with the sequential turn signals. You have an e-Tron GT badge, and you have this really aggressive rear diffuser. Of course, no exhaust tips. You're not going to find anything like that, but they do offer a poppable, deployable spoiler, which will pop out to help with downforce when this vehicle is traveling at high speeds. Now, although this vehicle has kind of like that sloped hatchback design, the e-Tron GT is actually a sedan, which kind of surprised me. Just like the Porsche Taycan, this is a power opening trunk lid. It measures just over 9 cubic feet of space. That is on the small side. It isn't quite as usable as some of the internal combustion gas cars that are in this segment, but again, it all has to do with the shape. I kind of wish that Audi had gone with a liftback, a sportback design, but underneath here you can see there's a little bit of underfloor storage, and when you combine it with the front trunk, it still remains a relatively practical vehicle, but you should know that a hatchback like the Tesla Model S is going to offer a little bit more space. Now, if you plan on using the e-Tron GT as a family vehicle, I will mention that it is a little bit tight when I get back into this back seat. Just like the Porsche Taycan, Audi says you only get around 32.5 inches of legroom back here, which is really tight. This is like what you'd expect to find in a two-door coupe. Now, thankfully, you have a set of 4 full-size doors. You have your own rear seat climate controls, vents back here. I love the Audi sport seats here, which are actually covered in this kind of leather material as well. Now, keep in mind, this is a pre-production version. This is the GT RS version, and it also has this armrest here that folds down and gives you 2 cup holders. It really is more of a 4-seater. I mean, there is a seat here for a middle passenger, so you could have 5. This could carry 5 people, but really, with how narrow the actual seat back is, this is going to be most comfortable, of course, with 2 in the front and 2 in the back. Now, as we leave the Volkswagen and Audi headquarters here in Herndon, you can see I've got my editor right next to me wearing his Volkswagen mask, even though we're in an Audi. We are finally driving the e-Tron GT, and Audi actually has kind of like an escort going on where there's an e-Tron SUV in front of me, and there's also going to be one behind me. And we're just going to do a quick little drive loop because this is, as I mentioned earlier, a very, very early first drive of these European spec cars. Oh! And you're literally getting my first reaction to driving this car. And keep in mind, I haven't driven a Porsche Taycan. The RS version that we're driving has 637 horsepower on overboost. 591 or 590 when you're not on overboost. Wow, it's been a while since I've driven something this fast. Now, Rob, my editor, just took delivery of a Model Y Performance. So I'm going to be asking him his thoughts later as we really get on it, because he's been driving it for how long now, Rob?
About 3 months now.
3 months, and he does love it.
I do.
I was kind of laughing at the fact that the build quality still isn't wonderful, which is why other brands coming out with electric cars is so exciting, because you don't have to necessarily buy a Tesla anymore.
A couple things weren't tucked all the way in.
A couple things weren't, and they fixed it for you at least, right?
Yeah, one visit, it was fine.
True, but this is a $65,000 vehicle, and it should be built well.
But it's a Tesla.
It's a Tesla. Now, I will say the one thing I don't like about this car is the regen braking is not quite as strong. It doesn't really offer the one-pedal drive that you get from some of the competitors. I know Audi and Volkswagen, they don't like to do the full strength one pedal drive because it feels very different for a lot of people, but I think when you're driving an electric car, it's it needs to feel that way. That's the whole point of an electric car, is it needs to feel like a different type of vehicle. But my initial drive, you know, it's very positive. I like the way this feels. It does feel a little cramped in here. This interior feels small, but it also feels very high-tech in here. Unlike the Porsche Taycan, which has like a multitude of screens, like 4 screens total, this just has 2. You have a 10.25-inch screen here, an Audi virtual cockpit 12-inch screen there. Audi didn't decide to do an actual screen down here, which I kind of appreciate, but it's very familiar in here. There's a lot of carbon fiber. I want to also keep in mind this is a very early prototype and the build quality is still a little bit wishy-washy. Audi promises the full production spec will be up to their snuff whenever we get our hands on that. But Rob, what do you think of the interior? Does it feel luxurious in here, spaceshipy?
So I honestly don't feel too much that makes it feel like a pre-production. I mean, I know when I first got into position for filming, the auto windows didn't go down, then they started working. So that's the only thing I'm seeing that looks pre-production. I think compared to like a Model S, something like that, you can definitely feel you've got less vertical visibility here. It feels a little bit more cramped, but as far as lateral space, it's not that bad. And it's once you get in it, it's comfortable. When I first got in it, I had to adjust the seat. I mean, given behind me, yeah, I've got maybe 2 fists behind me, but it's comfortable once you're in there. It's a little more cramped than a Model S, I would say.
Yeah.
I haven't been in a Taycan since you haven't. But.
Well, you know, considering how big this car is, it doesn't feel quite as big on the inside, which I think is okay, but...
Interesting. It's quick.
I mean, considering... that e-Tron, the regular SUV, I had my foot to the floor there, and I was expecting us to really pull closer to him. So he had a couple of second head start, but wow, that is potent.
Yeah.
I do like how fast it feels, even at highway speeds. This thing feels properly fast. I mean, it better be. We're talking about a $140,000 car here. I mean, you could essentially get a Model S Performance, and it's cheaper than this thing. Which some of you may want to go do that. You might want to go get the Tesla Model S. However, this definitely feels a lot cooler. It feels unique in a sense that it's just as fast as the Teslas, even though it's more expensive. Remember, this comes from a legacy auto manufacturer. And I think that is going to sway a lot of people because it's built. It's going to be built extremely well. It's going to be built to, of course, the German car standards, which is meticulous.
That Model S updated interior, though.
It looks good.
This, I feel like.
Well, I haven't seen one in person yet. I don't believe you have either. So just the pictures. Although that yoke steering wheel is probably.
Is that going to be production?
I don't know.
I don't think it is.
They're saying that yes, it is, but I don't know. Like, I'll believe it when I see it, basically. But let's talk a little bit about the range, because when we left Audi headquarters, it was showing a 73% charge, and it was showing 173 miles on that full charge. Now, Audi's estimates show 232 on this model. Now, I want to keep in mind that the legacy manufacturers tend to be a little more conservative with their range figures. They tend to be more accurate, versus Tesla tends to overreach. They tend to overestimate. So, of course, like a comparable Model S will do like 400 miles or something like that. Or the performance version's like around 350 or something like that, which is, you know, class leading. And I'm sad that Audi didn't, you know, do something like that for this. But you have to keep in mind that in the real world, this should do around 300, and I can't wait to test that.
Definitely pushes the blood back in your body.
Wow. I miss driving a fast electric car. Like
from a standstill, it reminds me of the NSX a lot.
Yeah.
The way it feels.
I definitely want to see if we can have an opportunity to do the launch control. Now, because we have so little time with this car, like our time ends in about 20 minutes, I'm not going to be able to do a 0 to 60 time with my accelerometer. I'm going to wait until Audi sends me one for a week where we can do a proper range test. We can do all the testing in it. But remember, Audi says 3.1 seconds for this model, and I think they're being conservative. That's what the Germans tend to be. Because obviously you can get a Model S Performance and it's like 2.5 seconds, which is bonkers. I actually haven't experienced something that fast. Like, not an electric. Like, we drove the NS, we had that 911 Turbo, which does it in 2.3 seconds, but that's gas, which is ridiculous. But there's something about electric and that kind of speed that really just, you know, it very much can replace the the internal combustion engine vehicle for me, even though like you don't have any noise, but this car does make that fake noise.
It's like coming from the back, isn't it? It's like almost like a flirt.
Yeah, it's very like George Jetson-y, very futuristic. Now, you can turn that noise off if you don't like it. I can let's go to comfort, and that should turn the noise off. Yeah. You still sort of hear it, but I probably would rather drive this without the noise. I mean, the noise is cool, but I think the whole experience of an electric car is just quiet. I love how it's so quiet, yet you floor it, it's so savage. And that's what makes it, you know, a really unique experience for me when you drive something that's this fast. It's just the stealth of it is really nice.
You said when we left range was 172?
Yes, 173.
It's been pretty accurate then too, because we've gone through about 9.5 miles on the odometer, and we've used about 9.5 on the range.
Yeah.
I mean, given that's really short time frame, but still, even on my Y, you know, 30 miles, it'll end up using 45 miles.
I did not, like when I had my Model 3 Performance, I noticed that the range calculator would drop a lot faster versus actual mileage that I was going. Yeah, sadly there's a popo.
If we get a ticket, does Audi pay for it? They're following that.
Damn, the cop is ruining my fun.
We're already going. So.
That's the thing, is I was going the speed limit earlier, and this thing just cruises like a German car. Really, really solid feeling. I mean, this vehicle weighs 5,100 pounds. It's 500 pounds heavier, 500 pounds heavier than an Audi RS7. Ridiculous. Yet it feels light on its feet. It rides extremely well. We love that air suspension. It's so quiet in here. You know, above 70 miles an hour, there's little to no wind noise. Of course, there's no engine noise, no road noise also, even though we've got these big, massive tires. And I'm impressed. This is the kind of car that you're going to cruise all day long on the Autobahn at high speeds. It'll do it. And Audi says the top speed of this model is 155, which is electronically limited. I think it would easily go 200 almost if you took the limiter off. Try the launch control really quick. Good. Wow. 3 seconds, what Audi says, huh?
Made my eyebrow twitch a little.
So it didn't actually say launch, like activated here, but I could see something was building, and I waited for it to kind of finish building, but...
Where?
Like right here on the left side. That felt properly quick. That felt quicker than my Model 3 Performance that I used to have.
It's quicker than my Y.
Quicker than your Y? Oh yeah. Well, bravo, Audi. This gets me more excited to drive the Porsche Taycan, but the RS version is pretty damn fast. Now, in terms of the handling, I want to briefly talk about this because we've got these fat 21-inch wheels, summer tires. This vehicle weighs, remember, 5,100 pounds. Yet, just like a lot of other electric cars, because of the battery packs that are mounted low, lowering the center of gravity, it hides that weight extremely well. The steering, I do think, needs a little bit... I do think the steering needs a little more feedback. It's way too light in this mode, in dynamic mode. But the vehicle just changes directions very quickly. It just doesn't inspire much confidence when the steering is so light and kind of devoid of feel. It's very typical Audi. So I wonder if the Porsche has a little bit heavier steering to it. Just grips for days. Now, the one thing that's interesting about these Audi and Porsche electric vehicles is they actually come with a 2-speed gearbox. At higher speeds, the transmission has another gear that will actually shift to give you better acceleration, better range at that higher speed. I actually haven't felt it shift at all. Most of the times, it just gives you that instantaneous acceleration that breaks people's necks, or if your videographer or your editor is next to you and not paying attention, I can just kind of do this. That's my favorite part about electric vehicles, just pissing off my passengers whenever they're not paying attention to the road. So in the past, if you were looking to buy a ridiculously fast Audi with 4 doors, the RS7 fit that bill quite nicely for a lot of enthusiasts. I've driven the current model. it is a really capable V8 powered all-wheel drive machine that will do 0 to 60 in around 3.5 seconds. Now, the e-Tron GT is designed to be Audi's electric future, and this is the car for a lot of enthusiasts out there who can spend the money on RS7, who want something that's actually electric, that looks even more sleek versus the RS7. And as you guys saw from the GT RS version, this one here is actually quicker than its gas-powered equivalent because remember, it has that 800-volt architecture, it has that 93 kilowatt-hour battery pack, it has over 630 horsepower when it's an overboost function, and really, the looks of this car is what sells it for me. I just think this looks a lot better versus its sibling, the Porsche Taycan. I love how low and wide it is. I love how Audi designed it to be more of a grand touring car versus Porsche went a little bit more of the sports car route. And if you guys are looking for a ridiculously fast electric four-door and you want something that's not a Tesla, that's something that stands out a lot more, this new e-Tron GT is definitely going to fit the bill. And it goes on sale later this summer at a starting price for that one over there, the regular e-Tron, at $99,900 plus destination. The RS version, which will essentially give you an extra 170 horsepower, will start at $139,900. Now, of course, these ones here are very early European spec pre-production models. So I'll be doing another review later on with US spec cars where I'll be able to do a little bit more thorough testing with the range, with acceleration timing, with the handling, and what I actually do get in the real world. But I did build one on Audi's website, and you could essentially spend well over $150,000 for one that has all of the options. But of course, that is before you factor in the $7,500 tax credit. And really, if you guys are looking for a Porsche Taycan and you've been waiting for the Audi version of this car, this is the one that you've essentially been waiting for. And I think it's one of the best looking new vehicles that you can buy currently in production today. With all that said, I hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on the 2022 Audi e-Tron GT. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at redline_reviews, like us on Facebook, and as always guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.